Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Good afternoon and welcome to Collaborative Connections radio show and podcast sponsored by KLM. We are live in studio in Tempe, Arizona on Phoenix Business Radio X inside Mac 6. Some of us are coming in from other states and other parts of Arizona, so I can't wait to just jump right in. Before I do that, for new listeners, I always like to say this show was created so that we can collaborate and do business with people we like. It's a better community, right? If we get to work with people we love, meet new people that's, have similar likes and morals and all the things, right? So I love connecting my clients with others in the community that are doing cool things. So I can't wait to introduce you to my three amazing guests today. I'll start with you, Madeline. Tell us a little bit about who you are and maybe your story.
Great. Well, thank you, Kelly, so much for having me. And hi, everyone. I'm Madeline Frederick. I am from Children's Hospital, Los Angeles. So I'm the one joining from out of state today. I'm the Executive Director of Strategic Planning here at CHLA. I've been in Southern California healthcare, hospital administration for about 10 to 12 years, somewhere in that range. Had roles almost exclusively in strategic planning and business planning type of roles in academic health systems, cancer center, and now Children's Hospital. So I've gotten a number of different experiences, but all on the healthcare provider side. I'm originally from Kansas City. So while I've been out here for a while, I'm originally from Kansas City and I'm still a big Kansas City Chiefs fan. So excited to be here and excited to meet the rest of you.
Oh, it's so nice to have you on. Thank you very much. Judy, what about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe your backstory.
Sure. Well, thanks, Kelly. Judy Smith, and I am a co-founder and principal with a company called Smith Hager Bejo. We do women's and children's healthcare consulting, management consulting, facility planning. I am a native of North Carolina, so you'll hear a little bit of a twang every now and then. Live here in the greater Phoenix area and have had the privilege in a very long career with our firm co-founded in 1995. I've completed about 1,000 women and children's planning projects in the U.S. and 6 countries, and love to support people like Madeline and Megan and others to help them plan some of the best healthcare facilities and services in the world.
Way cool. I can't wait to dive in. I love having you on. I've gotten to know you personally and professionally working together, and it's an honor to have you today.
Thank you.
All right, Megan, you're up. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's really exciting. So my name is Megan Duffy. I work for DLR Group. I'm the Southwest Interiors leader for that team. Have been in the Valley since high school, but I grew up in Oklahoma. Spent most of my summers in Arizona, so I feel sort of like a native. And got into design right out of college and kind of worked my way through the system. And I'm really excited. I now lead a team for Colorado and for Arizona. And so manage approximately 25 people on my team, and then also get to work on a lot of different projects, healthcare being one of them. So I worked on a wide variety of healthcare projects in the Valley and then also nationally within the firm. So really excited to be here.
You can call yourself a native, can't you? That's cool. Really cool. Well, now you guys know why I invited all of you together, right? Everybody's in healthcare. My family and I owned a medical practice, so I'm very familiar with the healthcare industry. The last couple of years have had a crazy for this industry, right? So what I'd like to do is starting with Madeline, and I'm gonna throw you a ringer a little bit, is instead of going and into, we will get to it at some point, I know, about your work and what you do, but I really like this to start out the conversation with either what's your why talk about a deep question. I know, but what's your why? Why do you do what you do? What drives you every day in life and business? It's I just love knowing that about people, about humans. I think it connects us very nicely to each other. So, Madeline, I'll start with you.
Yeah. No, it is a big question, but I love this question because it's easy to answer when you work in such a mission-driven environment. I do work in a unique environment, but I've been in several different roles, as I mentioned, and always at organizations that where the mission was very clear and kind of my connection to helping patients and families was very clear. I work in this kind of nice sweet spot where I get to work for organizations that have people, not me, but people who can actually help people and help patients and families. But I also get to work on the strategy and business side of that. So, how do we make that all work? So, I love that intersection. When I was trying to decide what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be, I always knew I kind of wanted to work in the strategy business world. Don't know if I knew what that meant, but I knew I had interest there, but also really wanted to help people and give back and in some ways kind of be a public servant. So this is a nice marriage of those two things. And, you mentioned the last couple of years, you're right, have been incredibly difficult for everyone and everyone who's working in the healthcare space, especially. And so being able to always, of course, we've had a lot going on and there's stress and all of that. And I also have two little kids. So, trying to balance all of that, it's always so necessary for me to be able to fall back on, but I'm doing this for such a great reason and for such a great purpose and having that mission driven approach. So that's my why.
I love that. I love that. I have chills. It is. It's really cool to be able to affect so many people on, right, the business side and the patient care side and the families that you can do on a very large scale working, in corporate, which what they call it corporate. They don't call it corporate. See, I don't even, I'm like, I've always owned my own company, so I don't even know the lingo.
Yeah, but working on I know what you mean. I'm a step removed, but can still support from that, yeah, business administrative side.
Yeah, you can make a big impact that way. I love that. All right, Judy, what's your why?
Well, it actually kind of follows Madeline's a little bit because I worked in hospitals for about 7 years. And then I decided I loved the business side of it. I really liked that. I had a knack for statistics and numbers and management, and I wanted to do that. And I was told I needed to get a master's degree. So after about 7 years, I got a master's degree. I blended healthcare and business together, similar to what Madeline was saying. And it was the perfect blend. And I started working in a healthcare administration role. And so then to take us to my company I've had for the last 1995, a long time, I got laid off. Our whole department was closed down in the 90s during a terrible time in the recession. And so we got laid off, and I decided that I was going to go approach two other women and see if they wanted to start a company with me and do consulting and what I loved, which was women and children's healthcare. So I did that and haven't looked back yet. Love it. I have been doing it since then and really like specializing in women and children's. The thing I like most about it is really, again, helping hospitals make a difference in improving the environment and doing emerging things that are just, things that are transforming, like crazy things like imagine having a hospitalized mom who's just had a baby that needs high risk care and having them stay in the same hospital room, which only 15 states in the country even have one hospital that does that. So I help get out there and help them, the hospitals, make transformative change. And that's very rewarding.
Oh my gosh, if I would have been able to stay in the same room with my NICU baby, I would have kissed you. But that's a huge deal that you get to be on the front lines,
Right.
That's really, really cool. All right, Megan, you're up.
Sure. I love this question too. I think, we spend 90% of our time indoors. I think that's the statistic these days. And I think COVID has made that even more apparent how space influences our lives. And it can be a positive or it can be a negative. It can help support us in our daily tasks. It can make them more difficult. It can provide healing environments and really help support those goals. And so I think it's just space is amazing in terms of how it benefits our lives. And so being able to devote our time, my time specifically, to making those spaces functional, beautiful, and places we want to be is just really powerful and can really transform a life and inspire people. And so, yeah, I have a great time doing that.
Yeah, it is. It makes a that's a shocking number, isn't it? 95% of times, especially in Arizona when it's hotter than you know what outside.
Totally. It's like
I
our
didn't
winter,
know that.
right?
I didn't know that stat. You're making me think once we're after the show, I need to get up from behind the computer and get out there.
Especially you can, right? And LA's better than it is here for sure. I think that's interesting with COVID. The silver lining a little bit is family and be in your environment matters. And we went from traveling the world to traveling Arizona in our car by ourselves, because we still wanted to get out and go see things, right? You get to make your environment. You get to choose your environment, and what a cool thing it is for you to get to help create these spaces for everybody else's environment to be. When you're in a beautiful space, doesn't it make a huge difference? Or the feeling of the space definitely makes a big difference. Really cool.
Loved hearing Megan and Judy what you do. Both of those things are just so important as you're thinking about children's hospitals, and something that we're thinking about all the time, because it really, I keep saying patient and family, because it's not just patient centered, it's patient and family centered care when you're in a children's hospital. And so the work that you all do to help us with those types of spaces and making sure that certainly the patients feel comfortable and happy and as comfortable as they can be, but also the whole family, because there's so many different dynamics and needs. So the space, healthcare is still very, very much an in-person, at least in hospitals, right? It's very much an in-person activity. And so to the extent we can make those spaces work for everyone, it's just so important.
Well, and I think with healthcare too, the staff is almost as important as a patient in some aspects, because
Completely. Yep.
they need to be supported in a way, because they're trying to support obviously patients and the family. And so how can we create a really amazing environment that helps support everybody? Because there's just tough situations that they have to deal with. And so how can we make their jobs easier so they can spend the time to focus on the patient versus having to do all of the different activities that they're required within their profession.
And the amount of time that we spend at work every day, right? Don't we want to come to a beautiful space, or a comforting space, or something inviting? Yeah, that's really, really cool. All right, so why did you choose the industry that you're in? Why healthcare? I'll start with you, Madeline.
Just to add on, I was one of those kids, I guess, who thought maybe I wanted to be a doctor one day, and didn't know what other jobs were possible. Doctor, nurse, kind of end of list, right? But there's so many opportunities in healthcare. So I think I just sort of had that as one of the possibilities. And once I learned more about different opportunities in healthcare, that's even more why I chose this field, because there were so many different things. So you're not asking this question, but that's actually, I do a lot of work with different programs, educational programs and things, talking to kids even at the high school, middle school and high school level about healthcare and opportunities that are available, because I think it's very hard to know what you don't know. And there's just so many things, whether it's you're somebody who actually wants to be on the clinical side of the world, and caring for patients and families directly, or having one of the thousands of jobs like mine that are in IT or in strategy, in finance and all of the other areas that are absolutely necessary for healthcare as well. So I think just there's the mission driven part that I already went into, but there's also a big job opportunity piece to healthcare as well. And so that was definitely appealing to me, and things that I'm trying to help educate others about different opportunities as well.
That's huge, huge career opportunities. People, you're right. I grew up in a family with a doctor and a nurse for, for parents, and you're like, you can be this. Well, luckily my parents said you can be anything you want. They didn't say, but people often ask me, why didn't you go into healthcare, right? So that's why I always like knowing, and it's cool to have that many opportunities that you could have, you could go into it from a business standpoint or a consulting standpoint, still own your own business, but you're impacting a lot of lives through that. That's really cool. Judy,
Well,
why?
and doctor and nurse are still incredible options. I wasn't
Yes.
discounting those.
No,
And
no.
we definitely want people to still be interested in those. But yeah, there's so much.
There is so much. I have a lot of friends and family, in healthcare, and there is so much opportunity for growth in so many different aspects. So that's really cool. Judy, why healthcare?
Well, even some of the same reasons Madeline said for why healthcare, but even taking that down one more level, use the word opportunity. There's this huge opportunity to really improve women and children, specifically healthcare. When I started out in that, there was a dearth of resources and funding, terrible infant mortality rates in the United States. We still have terrible maternal mortality rates in the US. It's one of the worst of the industrialized countries in the world. And so improving those environments, I saw that opportunity to do that in some small way to try and make a difference. And that's what drew me to it. It's almost like helping the underdogs, if you will. And so I really thought that women and children's was where I wanted to focus.
I love that. Women and children advocate. We need as many as we can get, right? Megan, what about you? Why healthcare? Well, you do a bunch of it, but what do you right? You do a lot of industries. But what's the draw to healthcare?
I think for me, it's complicated. It's like a puzzle. There's a lot of parts and pieces. So, there's like a hospitality component to it. There's more of like a resident side to it. There's, the very technical side in terms of operating rooms and clinics and those types of things. And so I think it just really stretches my brain in a way where I get to be creative, but I also get to be really technical. There's a lot of coordination. There's a lot of standards. There's a lot of innovation. We're going to see technology revolutionize what happens in healthcare. We already are, but in 10 years it's going to look completely different than it probably does now. And so how do we plan for those things? How do we create space that is a flexible and adaptable? So there's just a lot of really cool things and challenges related to it that make it a really fun industry to work in. And then the clients are amazing, and then you're also doing something for, the better good of people as well. So, I mean,
All around. I love the
all
puzzle.
around kind of just amazing.
I love the puzzle analogy, right? I never get bored in my business because I'm always trying to figure out how these all go together, and massaging, and it's different every day, which I assume is for you guys. It's every single day is different for you guys in your
Definitely.
in your
And
businesses.
I appreciate, Megan, that you were saying that you see the standards or the restrictions as something that actually makes it interesting. I know that
Totally.
that's something in healthcare that can be really frustrating as well. So that positive spin on it is really nice.
I think sometimes the hardest clients are the ones that don't have standards or don't really know what they
Mhm.
want, because there's so many directions you can go. So you can spend a lot of time within a project, working through that context versus realizing an actual end product. And so you get a little bit farther away from helping people in that context because you're like, okay, let's get through some of this. Whereas when you work with organizations that are very, specific, then you get to focus on some of the more exciting things or hospitality or the environmental based research or working through how you can make their processes better or more efficient. And so there's a lot of components that we can measure that are really fun to explore when some of that stuff isn't doesn't have to be figured out on the table, I guess. So
Yeah, that's really, really neat. All right, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about collaboration and the power of networking in healthcare and in any business. The more we can collaborate with each other, the more referral partners we have, and power partners, the easier, right, our lives get. The more people we have in our corner to help us. Who are your power partners, referral partners, or collaborative? Like, how do you work collaboratively with others? I'll start with you, Madeline. You don't have to name drop. I mean,
No,
more
it's
in
I couldn't
general.
even because it's such a yeah, no, it's such a long list. Um, I think that's
It takes a lot to
yeah, it
run a
is.
hospital, right?
Especially with being in such a big organization, and being so I'll talk specifically in my role with strategic planning and trying to anticipate what the not only responding to what's going on today, but trying to anticipate what things are going to look like 3, 5, 10 years in the future, and to what extent do we want to influence that? To what extent are we going to respond to those trends and those changes? That's just a really cool part of my job. But I have to get outside of our organization and get input from as many, I guess, people, organizations as possible to help with that. So we work with, healthcare intelligence partners. We work with very capable consultants. We also work with other hospitals, not just children's hospitals, but other providers across the country. So I actually think within the industry, some of the most insightful things or new ideas or things that we've gotten are really from being collaborative with other hospitals and other children's hospitals. Sometimes it's just to commiserate or hear each other out, or be like, oh good, it's not just us, you're all experiencing that too. So that's one just nice to have. But it's also and Judy and I have done a little bit of this, sharing best practices with other hospitals together, where seeing how other hospitals have tackled space issues or tackled access issues of how patient flow, all of those things are really helpful. It's really hard to start these things on your own, and so knowing that others not only have had the same problem that you're trying to solve, but have tried a couple of things that have worked or not worked have been super helpful. So I there are a lot of spaces. Obviously, sometimes it gets tricky when you are in competition with other hospitals and can't share things. But for the most part, we're talking about how to design spaces, how to think about operations and operational improvement, how to think about the patient and family. None of that's competitive. All of that's just sharing best practices. And I feel like in our industry, most folks are really open to that. So it's a huge part of my job is making sure that we're doing that outreach outside of CHLA.
And having the collaboration and knowing, I mean, even my small businesses, even my clients that I work with and family owned businesses, get outside of your own head, right? Well, there's no reason to do this alone. You talked about having little kids. People tell you when you have little kids, like, it takes a village. It takes a village. And I said at one of these conscious capitalism events lately, I said, you realize, like, we say that to the parents, it takes a village. Well, it takes a village to run a business, so we should continue to, attract and ask and be a part of these communities to collaborate, because there's no reason we should have to do it on our own.
Yeah, I love that point, Kelly. And it's something that I'm still learning, but I've learned throughout my career, but I don't want to put a stop to it. I think hopefully I'll continue learning, is that admitting that you don't have the answer or asking for help are really important parts of the process. That is a big part of our job, is to get other input and get help from outside. So yeah, I love that.
The faster you
comment.
learn that, the faster the easier your life gets, right? That you don't have all the answers and to keep asking and keep asking for help.
Right.
Especially when it comes to parenting, since you brought that up. So the analogy is just full circle.
Yes, there is nothing that somebody hasn't been through. So keep
That's right.
asking until you get the answer you're
Mhm.
looking for or the help you need, right? Do not suffer this on your own. Parenting, business, any of it, right? Judy, what about
So
you?
I think, well, Kelly, I have to say you're like the queen of collaboration and connection. And so they're pulling us all together and doing this for 3 years now with this amazing vehicle that you have to do that. So thank you for that. And you're proof that collaboration and connection are really what makes entrepreneurial businesses work. And I do believe that having opportunities to get involved in networks and things for many decades now, I've learned a lesson that you really have to pick and choose which ones you get involved in and how you act inside them. So, finding the ones that are going to resonate with your interest, make a difference, going into those vulnerable and not being the one who knows it all, taking the time to listen and learn. And then when you do speak, have something meaningful to say. So over the years, I've kind of learned some of those lessons, sometimes the hard way. But I think it's really of all the things I do in my business, that collaboration and giving freely of information. Any entrepreneurial group that is very private and protective and guarded with their information in this social media day and age, it's not going to make it. You get back triple fold anything you share willingly in your collaboration. And that's really something that I think is important for anybody starting out as an entrepreneurial or even in the health, in the hospital side of it as well.
You have to. You have
Mhm.
to be open and be vulnerable
Mhm.
and be willing to, share
Mhm.
what lessons learned and it's one of my favorite parts about this,
Mhm.
about doing
Yeah.
this is the sharing of information, share and collaborating with each other because we can all make a difference. And we talked about earlier before the show about pivotal moments,
Mhm.
right? The things that we share, the things that we give advice for listening, all those things are pivotal moments in your life, right, in your business, and it can make all the difference. Do you want to share your
Oh,
pivotal moment
okay.
story?
I will have to do this. So in 1995, I was trying to think about launching this new business with one of my co-founders, and we had degrees in health administration, masters, so we knew how to do a business plan and a strategic plan. So we pulled together a business plan for our venture we wanted to do, launching a consulting firm. And she knew somebody whose husband was a financial guru, had Fortune 500 companies that he consulted with, and all of this. So we went to him with our little business plan and we sent it to him. And he called us into his office a few days later. We're sitting on the edge of our chair waiting for him to tell us that, are you guys kidding? What do you think? Who do you think you are? So we were sitting there and he looked at us and he said, "Are the two of you brain dead? You have to do this. You've got this." And we were just like, "Oh my gosh, this man has confidence in us to launch this business. So, by golly, we got to have confidence in ourselves." So, we took that confidence, and confidence is such an important piece of launching or anything, any project, anything you do. And we went out the door, and we've said this for years and years and years, is that he has no idea what those words meant to us. Those words alone were what put us over the edge of starting our business. And you never know when you're talking with people particularly entering the field or those that have even been there a long time, what that connection, collaboration, insight, and just words can do for your career. And so I think that was I hope that I can, my goal is one day to do that for somebody else.
I'm sure you already have. I'm sure you already. We should just have a whole show on pivotal moments, right? And and see how many people we can
Yep.
reconnect with. You have to tell him
I have
that
to tell I have to
story.
tell Kelly. I said, "Kelly, you made me think about this, and I haven't thought about this guy in years, except for a few years after that, he was doing a grassroots effort to get women's bobsledding back into the Olympics. For 60 years, women were kept out of the bobsled. And the reason they were is because in 1940, this woman named Catherine um, beat all of the men in the U.S. bobsled. The next year, the powers that be said it was unsafe for women to be in bobsled. So never again for 60 years. So we did he got us in this grassroots effort to help do that. And in 2002, we had the first women's bobsled in the limits again in that long. So I have not since that year spoken or told him that his words were a pivotal point for me. And so my lesson learned today is I'm going to go reach out to this guy. I looked him up on LinkedIn.
Yay, the power of LinkedIn, right? Oh, I love those pivotal moments. So, Megan, tell us your collaboration or how you use collaboration in your business. And then, of course, throw in any pivotal moments you've had.
I mean, I feel like we collaborate on the hourly basis just internally to get a project done, the amount of people that it takes, and then externally. My favorite collaborations are always the one with the clients and, trying to exceed their expectations. You come in with a plan and idea, and the goal is always to go, yeah, that's a great plan and that's a great idea. But here's some other things that are going on with the industry, and being able to share benchmarking and network them with other companies and hospitals or whatnot that are doing something similar or have elevated to the next level, and then get those people talking. And then, we have a couple clients who've connected, and it's like now they're best friends. And you're like, those kinds of things are just always really exciting to see how you can connect people. Because I think ultimately, as I get older, I just realize how small the world is. And we're all like 6 degrees of separation of somebody else. And so that's just really interesting and fascinating, I think, in terms of business and enjoying yourself, I think, in business. It's just the relationships that you build, right? And you never know where your next lead or your next, project or connection is going to come from. So it's kind of exciting. Pivotal moment is hard. I think for me, mine was like more of like a work-life balance kind of thing. There was a long time, I think, within my career, just because I'm in a pretty male-driven industry, where I really struggled with like, I want to be really good at my job, but and can I be good at my job and have a family? And what does that look like? Because I don't want to have to choose between the two. There was a moment where, I was talking to somebody and I realized, like, why do I have to choose? Like, why can't I just do both? Why does it feel like there's these restrictions, I guess? And so, I do have a family now, and I am way more successful than I was when I was really struggling with that conversation. And it wasn't any one thing. It was just like, okay, I'm willing to do this. It's okay. It's okay to pursue your career and be a great mom.
I love that. And being vulnerable enough to have that conversation with that one person or many people in that time frame of
Yeah.
your life to say, this feels weird and I feel guilty and I feel, because especially with the male dominated industry, it doesn't, give you that room, right, to feel like that, which we're hoping it, the more we talk about it, the more it changes.
Totally.
I
Totally.
know. Oh, I love that. What about leadership? Lessons learned in leadership, stuff you wished you would have known, just like you were talking about 6 degrees of separation. I wish somebody told me when I was a kid, hey, you better be nice to everybody because you never know
That's right.
who you're gonna, who you're gonna get to work with in the future or, have something happen because of that. I did learn that lesson, but it would have been nice to know that as a way younger. So now I tell my kids that be nice to everybody. So leadership styles, leadership lessons. We'll start with you, Madeline.
Yeah, I think the phrase that comes to mind to use buzzwords is leading through influence. So this has been true in all of my roles, but in my current role too, I have a very small but mighty team in strategic planning. But we do work that obviously we're working with leaders and team members all over the organization. I don't get to decide what our strategic plan is by myself. It's an incredibly inclusive process. And to facilitate that and get that done is a lot of leading through influence and making sure everyone understands what we're trying to do and how important it is to get their input and not just get their input, but set them up for success to lead in different areas. And so that's just a kind of a key piece of my leadership style is how do you lead through influence and not just in a hierarchical way.
did learn that lesson too. We
Um,
did too. We were talking about that
yes,
before.
we
We're
were.
we
We were.
about learning that all stakeholders matter,
Yeah.
right? In my younger days, it was like the client always came first. They were always treated the best, and the customer service above all. We called it the Four Seasons approach in our medical practice, and then come to the realization that your team, right, not your employees, not your staff, but your team is more valuable than your clients, or just as valuable, right? They all should have an equal say in how
Mhm.
things go. So it's definitely was a hard
Mhm.
lesson, but now I have the best team, and everybody gets to do what they love. And if you don't like it, don't do it. Let's find somebody else to help with that who likes to do that. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like,
Right.
and let's all right. Life is too short. Let's do what we love, and outsource everything else. Of course,
Yeah.
that's my tagline, but
That makes a lot of sense. And along with that, there's a book that I think I read it in graduate school a long time ago, but it's still relevant today. And it's that servant leadership, which is a similar buzzword. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it. And I do believe it really is true. I saw a thing, I've been involved with the Rotary International for a while. And I think I saw something recently on someone was saying is we don't all need to be the light bulbs or the lamp. We just need to be the switches that turn on the light. And I said, well, that's what I like to be. I want to be the switch that turns on the light. I want to make something the idea. I want to make the idea theirs, not mine. And if I can accomplish that as a consultant to introduce something new and transformative and important, or even just, something practical, and it becomes their idea, that is success.
and that it shines.
And it shines, yes, and it's successful. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. What about leadership style, leadership lessons in your life?
I think the same thing happens with leadership. I think is applying that piece where you are the servant that really, as I think Madeline says, supports those who are really doing all of the work. And I think it's also leadership style where emotional intelligence, another buzzword or phrase, but that's so important today with people at different polarized views and places on this earth. We really have to be curious and really ask people what they think, even if we think they might have a different idea, asking the whys, asking how they think and not assuming. So I think I really admire the leaders and would try to be one who is the leader who's curious, who asks why, and who wants to get into other people's minds and understand them, where they're coming from.
I love that.
And that's hard to do sometimes.
It is hard to do. It is hard to do, but being open to share, just like Madeline was saying earlier, like being open to share your plan, and here's why we need to do, this is what the point is, like having, even in a small business, like sharing the why, sharing why I do what I do with my team and my clients. It's important because then they understand and they'll back you so much better, right? If they understand why you're doing what you're doing, how you need to get there, what's the point of it, right? Like, what's the point of life, right? It just
And how their work fits into that is so important, right? Here's where we're trying to go at the highest level, but how does the work that you're doing today or this month or this year fit into where we're trying to go, whether it's as an organization or as a team or whatever. So yeah, I think that is so important to bring people along and get everyone energized around the work you're doing.
I have to add one thing to that. Madeline and I have had the opportunity to be on some professional groups together, being in the children's hospital world in the same area. And both of us recently heard some very powerful words from some physicians who talked about why they were in children's hospitals and what a sacred place it is, and went into that. And I'm telling you, at least Madeline probably too, we had tears in our eyes. It was so powerful. I would do anything for children's hospitals that had that kind of approach. And that just was so powerful. The why meant so much to us.
It does. You'll walk through mountains, walk through fire
absolutely.
for those people because their
Yep.
end, the end goal in mind. All right, Megan, you're up. Leadership styles, leadership lessons.
I think my biggest lesson learned is just creating allies within the industry and within your firm or corporation, and that those just can be so helpful in getting you where you want to go, provide mentorship, also helping you understand a complex problem or trying to traverse maybe a rocky road or work through the politics of an organization. I think just having those allies in place are just life changing, right? Like you can never have enough. And so I think that's really powerful. And then I think being curious, like knowing what motivates your team, it's part of the psychology, I think, of also like what motivates your client, like what are their hot buttons, what gets them excited, what is their why. Like all those things are really helpful. It's hard to do, it's hard to pinpoint that for every individual. But when you can do that, I think that's where you see the culture of a team really excel and everybody's kind of running at their, highest level.
The culture matters, right? Culture makes a huge difference in an organization. You want to go to work, you want to do things for your colleagues and your team. If the culture's good, it makes a big difference. And sharing having the good culture and knowing people's, even it's funny, we've done recently is not just like a disc assessment, or the assessments, but like what's your love language? Like what are your core values for your team members? We've been doing that recently with clients, and it opens their eyes. Like, I never even thought about what my team's core values, like no wonder they say, oh, like it's so eye-opening, and or with your kids, right? Or any of that. Like, have you ever, taken the assessment with your team for love languages or core values? I'm telling you, it's mind
Love language,
blowing.
really.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because you think you're like,
Yeah.
giving them kudos or, doing the thing that you're like, I love you and I need you and all these things. But what if it's the completely that they're like,
No.
okay, yeah, she's nice, but that's not like that's not filling my love cup.
That's a great idea. I mean, that really is something I've never really considered, but that's a great idea.
Yeah, it makes a big difference in all relationships,
Yeah.
especially with your kids.
We have something with sorry, Madeline.
No. Go ahead.
We have something with our company that's like insights discovery, and it's like your communication style. And so, that is because we're collaborating all the time and everybody communicates differently, kind of understanding what your coworkers and colleagues, communication style is, but then also we do it a lot with our clients too, especially when we know it's going to be a really long drawn out project. Just like how do you like to communicate? How is this going to work? And so if I come at you and I'm very direct and you want to be involved or whatever your language is in terms of that, it's been so helpful because you're just coming at a place of understanding, right? Like everything we do is about communication, and sometimes we do it well and sometimes not so well. So when you kind of have that as a grounding base, it can be changing.
So, Megan, have you done your love language exercise? I have no idea what mine is.
I actually have done mine.
That is great. That is great. Communication styles. We have a client that is a behavioral master, like behavioral superpowers, right? How do you behave as a human being makes a difference, right? Not just how you communicate, how you love, how you behave. The more we can learn about each other and what fills us up. And I just think that, like, keep giving it to me, right? I want you to know how much I care about you, but if I don't know how to communicate with you, to tell you that.
Yeah, exactly.
Kelly, you mentioned culture, and I was, Megan, you started to answer this, but I was going to ask you and Judy, since you have the experience of kind of going into a lot of different organizations or having different clients, if you have any, I don't know, tips on how you adapt to the cultures of different organizations, because obviously I'm, exist in mine, but I know that every organization is so different, and on maybe even a daily or weekly basis, you're interacting with lots of different people.
Great question. Megan, what do you think?
Well, I think when we first start to work with a client, the most important thing that we like to do is like what we call a visioning session. So we get all the stakeholders in a room within a company, because sometimes they aren't communicating with each other. They've communicated to us individually, but not as a group. And so getting everybody on the same page so that we can understand what's going on. And there's so much that plays into that. Some of it's body language, some of it's what's said, some of it's actually what's not said. Sometimes dislikes can be more helpful than likes, or what's not working can be more helpful than what's actually working, because that actually helps us create the context to solve a problem. And really learning what the culture is, and then also bringing in, hey, we've worked with a client that was similar to this, had a similar culture. Now that we start to understand and have a basis of knowledge for that, and then bring in things that worked for them. And some of it's a little bit of a hit or miss, and some of it's like, no, I think this is really going to be successful. So honestly, it's just getting to know people and the motivation behind that, and then helping strategize ways that we can help solve problems within that context.
Now, I would agree. The visioning and also the individual interviews and the group interviews, that always is very important to get sort of a lay of the land. I also do this little mental thing where as I'm doing that, I do the readiness assessment. Is this group ready on a scale of 1 to 10 to do what they say they're going to do in their vision? And I have had times where I've had to be, very candid and say, guys, I really would like to recommend that you do this, this, and this before you get to there, because your staff's not ready. They're going to, they can't plow into this tomorrow and get this thing going until they understand it. They go on site visits. They do this, they do that. They need to get up to speed. Otherwise, it's going to be a sabotage because they're not ready. So I think it's very important to understand the readiness of the culture as a whole piece of that. And you can only do it by things that Megan just mentioned, is, interviews, visioning, group sessions, and body language, and listening to people in the hallway, getting the inside scoop when you happen to walk by a staff person and ask them what they think. So those are the kinds of things, the obvious intelligence, and then the subtle intelligence.
And getting all the stakeholders involved, right? And understanding that. And like you said, get them ready, prepare them,
right.
Get them buying in
Right.
to your idea before you just go, guess what? Guess what we're going to do?
Well, sometimes it's pushing them too, because usually at the end of the visioning session, there's like a set of goals that everybody has agreed upon, that this is what we're going to achieve as a team. And so there are some points, and I'm sure Judy's had this, where you're like, okay, time out. You guys are not anywhere close to hitting the goals that you have said you want to hit. If you want to hit them, we need to move the bar much farther, much faster. And here's some tools and resources to help you do that. But sometimes those are tough conversations, because you're like, or we need to reassess the goals, because we're not going to hit them in any capacity at the rate that we're going.
Right.
So,
And then the executive like Madeline has to go in and make it all happen.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
I
Here
was
you
gonna
go.
say, Megan, you have to know if your client is okay even having that frank of a conversation. I mean, there's just so many communication styles,
Yes.
culture around how decisions get made formally versus informally, all of that. So yeah, it's just very interesting to me to hear. And Judy, I love that little readiness check that you have. I mean, I think just going in to different organizations all the time just must be very interesting.
Speaking of culture and brand, I'd love to hear your culture. You can be your personal brand or your company culture. It's nice to hear the values that we're bringing, right, as an organization or as a human into the world. Madeline, can you give us a little background on your personal brand or your company culture?
Sure, I can do both. Hopefully they align nicely. I was going to mention, as we were talking about different assessments, I can't remember what this one is called, but it was something around kind of core values or core, personality traits. I did as part of a leadership development program. And the number one that came up for me after I took this test was love. And I was so surprised, but it wasn't the love language. And then now I have to go do love languages
Me
to figure
too.
out
Me
how
too.
to express it. I was very surprised by it, because I'm somebody that it takes a while for me to feel comfortable in a new group of people or in a new situation. And I also sort of grew, I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in a pretty traditional, at least in a professional setting, like that's not something that you would bring to the table, right? At least not overtly or explicitly. And so I actually talked to my team about it, and none of them were surprised. They all were like, yeah, that just makes perfect sense for you. And so it was, which was wonderful. I'm glad it wasn't a surprise to them. It was to me, but that's, I really care about the work that I do. I really care about the people that I work with, especially those who are working for me, and we're spending all of a good portion of our lives kind of dedicated to this work. So I'm glad that comes through, and it's been eye-opening to me to have me be more aware of it, consciously aware of it, and making sure that comes out in the form of gratitude and dedication to the work that I do. I've already talked about kind of the mission driven approach to Children's Hospital, and I think that my core values align with that really nicely, with that culture and brand as well.
Yeah, it makes a way better balance, right? Being at work, away from your family, to have that alignment makes so much of a difference in your day. I always feel like I'm not really, am I working? Is this work? To be able to, because it aligns so closely, in the work that I do. So that's really cool that you found a company that is so aligned with your personal core values.
And our, sorry to add in one more thing. I keep saying mission driven. Our actual mission statement is to create hope and build healthier futures, which is just one of those things. Whereas when I was interviewing and that kind of, like, there's just nothing more inspiring to me than that. Like, oh, that's what I'm, no matter what I'm doing all day, every day, it's falling back on that or in support of that. And I think that is something that really drives everyone who works there. So
Really cool. Judy, what about you? Personal brand or
I get,
values?
yeah, I guess it would be personal brand, things that people say about me that I believe too, that passion. I'm very passionate about what I do with the women and children's, and I really do believe, you know, in a small way, making a difference is what it's all about. So passion. I feel like I'm a pretty confident at this stage of my career. I've confidence would be something people would say about me as part of my brand, as well as a continuous learner. I would say that, all those things are cliches kind of, but if you live it and you breathe it and you really show it in your actions, I think that's when I see that if I reflect back, I look and say, okay, yes, I really am passionate about that. And here's the 4 reasons why. It's not just talk. It's not just my vision on paper. It's something that I live by every day, and it's so easy. And I would say that's my brand. What I want to be is I want to be more vulnerable. And that's something I know is also something important these days, is to and reflective. Those are the things I'm working on to put into my brand that aren't quite there yet.
Aw, I love that. Megan, what about you? Company brand, company values, or personal brand?
Well, I love DLR Group's taglines for a lot of different reasons. One of them is elevate the human experience, which I think is a perfect description of what I love to do is, and it incorporates the human on every level. I also love that just our internal cultural brand, it's like everyone has a design voice. And I love that because our clients have a design voice. My daughter has a design voice. I have a design, and so how you empower people within that context. We have 7 different values, and my favorite ones, and I love that these are on our company's list, but fun, teamwork, collaboration, and sharing. It's like I couldn't do my job on a daily basis if those weren't incorporated. And I always try and remind the team, like, are we having fun? Is this fun? What are we doing to make this more fun? Because I think that does drive us in our experience. And if you're having fun, you're going to be more confident, you're going to be more creative. You're probably going to push the limits, and you're going to encourage others to do that. So I'd like to think I'm fun. I think I have better days than others, but I feel like all of that kind of embodies who I am. And I think that's why I've been at DLR Group so long and have enjoyed just working through the process here. So
You're helping make this fun today.
That's right. Well, life is too short not to have fun, not to laugh, not to be happy and to smile and to continue that work, in being reflective and seeing that the amount of success that you've had and connections and collaborations and all of that is really, really important. Can you believe we've been talking for almost an hour already?
No.
It goes
It is.
really
It's
fast.
just so much fun.
It goes so fast. So I'll have you answer one last question and then tell everybody how they can reach you or your organization. Is what's next? What's next for you or for your company? Madeline, I'll start with you.
Wow. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing in terms of providing world-class care to children and their families, and just continuing to increase access so that all kids in LA County and beyond can get CHLA level care. And how to reach me, is that next?
That's next.
The website is chla.org, and then me personally, you can reach me through my LinkedIn profile.
And spell your name for us.
My name is Madeline Frederick, MadelinFrederick.
There you go. It's good. Good. All right. What's next for you?
Well,
Judy?
for me, I've just started facilitating something that's new that's launched that I hope to take for the next few years. And it's called the Pediatric Environment Network. And it's the top children's hospitals in the country, many of them, and the facilities, environment leaders, as long as some architects and interior designers and engineers and other industry. And we're trying to exchange information, make it a network where it's safe for us to advance the whole environment. And I'm doing this with the Center for Health Design, which is a nonprofit organization, one of the big design organizations in the country. So that's what I'm doing next, is a really exciting thing. And in terms of reaching me, I'm proud to say I have a new website. Thank you, Kelly. And you can reach that at, I guess we have several ways to reach it now, but it's Smith. It's www.smith-hager-bejo.com, or you can Google women's consultants, and hopefully my search engine is better now, thanks to some help from Kelly and her crew. So it's Judy Smith, Smith-Hager-Bejo.
Thank you so much. I loved having you on. Megan, what about you?
Just working with amazing clients and hopefully delivering amazing projects, that are really exemplifying innovation and creativity. And then you can reach me at www.dlrgroup.com, or on LinkedIn, it's Megan Duffy, MEGAN. And yeah, happy to help anybody with any design needs.
That's so nice. Well, I loved connecting all of you together and sharing, being vulnerable and sharing our whys and sharing everything. I appreciate all of you being on today.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. And it's great to connect with everyone. And this is only the beginning.